Hey, everybody. It's Laura Fortino and
Sebastian Kahn.
Here with C'est La Vie, the podcast. It's our After the Show podcast in which we will talk all about the episodes of C'est La Vie, the web series. And basically a podcast. We're hoping it helps people, right? We're hoping it helps people learn how to make their own projects if they want, or even just help people get inspired, or even just entertain people.
Absolutely. Absolutely so. Welcome back. If this is your first time, today we're going to be talking about episode 3 of the web series.
Right.
Say Kate's, what is
Nemesis.
it? Nemesis.
So,
Right.
yes, the
Tegan.
name of episode 3 is Say Kate's Nemesis, and that would be the character Tegan.
Yes.
So Kate is trying very hard to be involved and feel relevant, and she's getting herself involved in activities at her kid's school, and it's a school that spans a lot of age range. So a lot of the mothers are a lot younger because they're there with younger kids, and the leader of sort of this parent group is Tegan, and Tegan isn't very impressed by Kate.
No, yeah. Tegan's, a character, to say the least.
She's Kate's nemesis.
Oh, 100%.
For sure.
She is, it's hilarious. Just the dynamic of, like, Annette, who played the character.
Mm-hmm.
She is such a kind, such a fun, like, free-spirited person. And when she was in character as Tegan, it was hilarious because it was very, very different, but very similar to who she was in, like, the free spirit way, in quotes. Like, she had this, I don't know, she just absorbed that character and was so in it every time. It was so funny.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I would love to. Hopefully, we'll get an interview with her at some time, but she's been busy. But the character, one of the reasons we chose her was because I think her own free spiritedness, when she took her own self and came in with sort of a condescending attitude, which we wanted from Tegan, she was good at doing it without seeming like she was trying to be mean.
Right.
She just weirdly was this person who came across as a little bit condescending and mean. And it worked out really well. Plus the juxtaposition of the way Kate looks and the Tegan character.
Absolutely.
So the Tegan character, young mom, say maybe around 30 or something,
totally.
Annette might even be younger, but this is what we made the character, early 30s. Young mom, I am maybe 5'3". I'm 5'2.5".
And change.
Yeah. And I would say Annette's at least 5'7".
Yeah.
And she has short, very blonde hair.
Yeah, like,
and blue eyes.
very.
Yes, and very nice, beautiful porcelain skin. And I'm olive with my red hair and my not 30-year-old self. And
a
short.
little different.
A little different.
So it was fun in frame, the dynamic, and
yeah,
especially with the writing, that condescending attitude. It in frame, if it were to, like, be silent, you could see it as well, and I think
that's
that
right.
was
The visual
worked. It told the story in itself,
and that's important. So this was really important with casting. So we held casting for Tegan, as well as for Justin, the part playing Tegan's husband, and we held casting for a doctor role.
Yes.
And for a chef role, because those two roles were so specific. Like, they couldn't just be any guy that might audition for Justin. But for all the other women pretty much in the series, they all could be the same age range as whoever came in for Tegan. We did not put any physical characteristic in our breakdown. So in other words, she did not have to be tall. She did not have to be blonde. She did not have to be blue-eyed. She did not have to be Caucasian. There was no parameter, even though I know how I wrote or why I was basing Tegan, how my own experiences, the sort of came to point from a couple women that I've dealt with myself. And so even though I wrote the character with those people sort of in mind,
Right.
I wasn't writing them. It didn't matter to me who represented Tegan. As long as when Tegan came in, that Tegan could be Tegan as the character's behavior needed to be. And so that we could see that.
Yeah, the characteristics.
The characteristics and the way it makes Kate feel.
Right.
So when I held the casting for that, there were so many women of all different types, right? We had South American, we had people of color, we had everybody under the sun. Like the people told me when they came in for casting, they thought we were casting more than one role that day because they were like, this is really interesting. This casting room's full of different people, and they were all reading for the same role.
Yeah, yeah.
And we found the most wonderful actors and actresses out of that casting, and we cast all the female roles from that.
From the Tegan casting.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in episode 2, Diana Lauren Jones, who was in the Office, she actually read for Tegan. The girl who plays the nurse, Gina, I'm going to say it De Cesare. I think she says De Cesare or De Cesare, but I'm Italian, so it's De Cesare for me. She read for Tegan as well, and for Gia.
Yep.
And we ended up finding that we went a different way with those, but we loved her, so we had her be the receptionist. And just so you know, as you watch farther, boy, get to episode 6 and look for Jackie.
Oh.
Jacqueline. Because she read for Tegan as well.
Yes.
And so you'll see, it's a totally different Griffin, who ended up playing Jacqueline. I did interview her the other day, so you'll see that interview. And she was amazingly happy, after all, that this other role was more for her.
100%.
Right. So but she's 6'2".
Yeah.
And then you'll see, like, I think maybe Gina and Diana are probably more on the 5'2" side.
Yeah, totally.
So we had a range of people.
It was super, super cool. The point you just made of the casting room, and I know that feeling of sitting in there and you kind of figure out who's there for who, and just by look. But I mean, obviously I wasn't sitting in that casting room, but I can imagine how wild that would have felt.
Because they didn't know what was happening, and there was no other roles.
I love that. That's my realization right now in this moment. I didn't realize that there was no physical character description or anything like that.
That's
super cool.
We actually read a role for a contractor, and we just put contractor. And we never put whether it was a male or a female. We just put, and we put the breakdown of what the contractor was going to do. And we read people of both genders for the role.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. It wouldn't matter. So, I mean, that would be from the writing aspect. My advice is, if you have, sometimes you're writing so specifically and there's a reason for it.
Right.
And then you're going to cast
specifically.
Right. You're looking for that type or whatever. But when it doesn't have to be, when you just know you need an actor who's good enough to bring the qualities of that character to life, then you end up, I think you will end up having a better opportunity to cast if you don't either gender the role. And then if you have to gender the role, like Tegan needed to be a mother to these children. So, I mean, I suppose we could have made it the father, but I don't think Kate would have felt the same way.
Right.
She wouldn't have had the same
it's
nemesis.
Not a competition.
Right. It's
so
not a
much.
competition then. So, other than gender, though, then we didn't care what race, height, weight, none of that.
Right.
We put none of that in there. And I would say if you're casting for something, the best thing to do is to cast based on trying to get the best actor you can for the role and not worry about these specific look.
Totally. Everybody says it, but like acting will make or break your project. It doesn't matter what cameras you have, what location, so on and so forth. Like if the acting is poor and the dynamic just doesn't feel real or natural, it shows, and it will, for me specifically, I'll speak for myself, I will stop watching.
I can't watch things with bad acting.
Bad acting.
No, it's very hard.
Yeah.
And there's stuff out there on TV
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff that has
mainstream
bad acting.
stuff.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And it's not even just bad acting that would, I mean, you could get a really good editor to edit, but you better have a lot of things to cut back and forth to. If you want to adjust a lot of coverage.
Totally.
So that's the other thing. We were shooting quickly. So a lot of times we're shooting in 2 shots or wides versus doing a lot of close-up coverage. We went back the other day and reshot a whole scene with close-ups on me because the editor on that needed it to go back and forth to make the scene more dynamic, to maybe cover up some little other flaws here or there.
Right.
So hopefully that helps, but you do want that coverage. I'm not a fan of I'm talking, you're talking, I'm talking, you're talking, I'm talking.
Right.
Like I hate that. Are those called French overs or whatever they're called? When it's just you're going back and forth to the people's face. I do like a wide. I do like
Me too.
A 2 shot.
Over the
I
shoulder.
like interesting 2 shots. I like so there's something, I was just looking at some footage yesterday of the upcoming episode 4, and there's this moment where the sister comes in and is talking right here, and I have to look at her, and then she comes around this way, but instead of ever going just back and forth, we tried to stay in that shot. I think that kind of stuff is great, but the acting then better be really good by both parties in this scene.
Of course.
And so you need things to cut away too. For
sure. I mean, this episode, episode 3 of the web series, there was a lot of people.
Yes.
A lot needed to be in the frame a lot of the time. And it would have been, well, how many people were here specifically? Actors.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 women, I think, plus me, plus 2, the character Mike, the character Olivier.
Right.
But this, I mean, we get more when we go to the next party scene.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking we got Tegan, Emily, Sarah, Kendall, Megan, Lila, Brett, and me. 8 women. And then the 2 men. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I think 10 actors that day in this tiny house.
Yeah.
And I mean, this house isn't tiny. We're not in an apartment, but it's not great. The layout's from the 60s. It hasn't been changed. So
I mean,
it's kind of boxy.
It's just, yeah, it's segmented off.
Right.
But I think another big part of it too was we had to put up a curtain as your fake wall. And it made it feel even more boxy. Intentionally,
yes.
That was part of the episode.
So the way the kitchen is laid out here, you have the kitchen and you have the eat-in area.
Mm-hmm.
And between that is like the way the kitchen's like a U. So the part of the counter and stuff divides the kitchen and the eat-in area.
Right.
So now you've got technically 2 spaces, even though it's 1 room. And then there's a wall between that and the living room, a half wall, which is not like you would not anybody in a newer house. That was great for the 60s. Nobody does that anymore. They leave it all a grand room
One
and they take
big
down the
room.
walls and
Yeah.
make it more spacious. And so we have this wall on one side and then like a half wall with these pillars and that you could see through. And so we needed to cover the half wall with pillars and the opening that goes into the living room because the living room itself had the fake wall. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you could see we had the fake wall right behind us here. And then I broke through the fake wall a
Exhibit
little
A.
too hard and broke through to the real wall. So if you're listening to this on an actual podcast platform instead of YouTube, you're not seeing the visual. I suggest you go to YouTube to look at this, or maybe we'll post a picture. So there's that, and that broke through. But there was a fake wall here that
In front of it.
yes, and Kate had decided to remodel her own house, and she spoiler alert. So she breaks through it. So you should be.
3.
We're on episode 3, but hopefully you've already watched episode 1 and 2. Anyways, you won't know when it's coming.
That's true.
But so she's trying to hide this
Right. From
from the
these
group.
10,
So
12
in
people.
that kitchen, which is in front of us, where we're sitting, and the doorway, the
Right now,
opening to
right.
see us is in front of us, behind the camera right now. We had to cover that with a curtain.
With a curtain.
To hang curtains because it was a big enough
Yes.
opening. And by hanging the curtains, it really, oh boy, that area got warm.
It got warm and it felt cramped. You know, I was almost 20 people with the crew in that room.
Yeah.
And the whole intention was to feel cramped. Anybody listening, don't think that it was like a mistake or anything. Like
No,
this was
yeah.
the intention totally,
Yeah.
completely from start to finish. But it definitely felt extremely small.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yes.
That was a lot of people. Managing people was.
Yeah. Well, because that was just the cast.
That was just the cast.
Then we still had, our director, our DP, sound, lights. You were here. Everywhere. We had Lawrence, who was our on-set, like, associate producer every day of the shoot. He would also be crafty for us. He'd run and get food.
Totally.
He kind of did everything we needed him to do. He was on from the beginning. He helped organize the project. So, and then that was a day, let's see, we had a BTS photographer.
We did.
Nawoko.
Yep. Totally.
And we also probably had Peter here, who helped out on a number of shoots for different things. Maybe we had Peter. But anyways,
we had quite a few people. It was like
was
every
so
room
crowded.
in the house was either with, like a green room, people changing, people.
Yep, and we had to move stuff out of the
Hanging
way
out.
because equipment normally would sit in the living room when we'd shoot in the kitchen, or equipment would sit in the kitchen when we shot. Well, problem was we were shooting from the kitchen into the living room. We had to get stuff out of the sight line.
Yep, that was fun. That was a hard day, a long day, but it was very. In retrospect, it was very. I don't know. I found myself learning quite a bit from that, just in how to deal with actors from a crew perspective. Not that I didn't know, but more so just at that scale of how many people. And then, like, being aware and adhering to their needs as well. Not just, I have a job to do, like, I'm going to go do my job, you don't matter to me. No, like, it was very much a collaborative group effort, right. And I think keeping the spirits high, keeping the energy up, could in a hot small space with over and over was very necessary, and I learned
they
quite a bit
also
from that.
Came in with great attitudes.
100%.
They had they just stayed positive all day. Nobody complained about being warm. Nobody
Nope.
Listen, I'm a complainer. I heard Julia Louis-Dreyfus say the other day that she was a complainer, and she didn't mind it. She liked being a complainer. And I'm like, oh, I've tried to spend my whole life like trying to figure out like how to not complain. But she said complainers are just honest people. That's a difference.
Yeah.
Is that other people are hiding things inside or keeping it inside, not in a negative way, but she said you've got to quit looking at complainers as negative. They're just the people telling the truth in the room.
I like that.
I do too, because I'm sorry. I live with somebody who does not complain. It's amazing. I don't know how he does it. My husband does not complain. Like, I very rarely hear a complaint word out of his mouth. And then you got somebody like me who's a squeaky wheel, or my son. Every minute I'm mourn, I'm whatever, so.
Well.
But those people came in and did not complain.
Not once. Not once.
No. It was crowded. It was hot. It was
fun.
It was fun.
I enjoyed that.
They brought in the joy.
Very much so.
We cast so many great people.
Like friends at this point.
Yes.
Like very much would hang out with them.
Yeah.
Would love to go to dinner and.
Yes, which we still will.
100%.
We haven't quite done a wrap yet, but we will.
By this point, when you're listening to this.
Yeah.
We'll be getting close to that moment.
I hope so.
Well, you'll probably see some photos
we'll
on Instagram or social media or whatever.
Yeah. Which, by the way, follow the C'est La Vie Instagram and TikTok, because we are dropping episodes on TikTok too.
Oh, yeah.
In shorter, smaller chunks. I just love that my dog did decide to get in her bed at our feet because she was wandering around wanting desperately to get on here with us and be in the podcast. And I keep looking down. She's in her little bed stretching all the way out of it.
Oh, yeah. No, she's full on loving it.
Yep. So I would say, and we used a different DP that day because Yasmin was not available.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Aaron.
He
was pretty great.
Yep, he was.
I liked Aaron quite a bit.
He had great equipment. He brought in a great monitor, but we didn't end up setting it up because the space was so small. His monitor was the size of a giant TV, which he wanted desperately for the director to be able to use. And she could not. I mean, in my opinion, I thought they should have set it up and tried to put it over somewhere. But she felt like it was totally going to be in the way. And so they chose not to set it up.
It would have been cool.
It would have been really cool.
Also to have that many people and have them
be able to see.
Yeah. But no, Aaron instantly came in super professional, super
good attitude,
and just like rolled with the punches and just made it happen. And that's, what we were all doing. And he just kind of fit in kind of very seamlessly. I felt. Yeah,
I really was pleased through most of the shoot. Not to say I didn't have my whatever stressors and I'm a complainer, so I have my complaining moments, not mostly to the crew.
As we all do that.
Not to the crew and the other people. I'm just, I'll complain to my husband who doesn't complain. He can absorb it. Or I have my couple people, my co-writer, Deborah. I would tell her every day what was going on since she was in Portugal. And that's just also because I'm also a perfectionist.
Yeah.
So I'm trying very hard to get my vision, but I'm also trying to be more zen in life about like, it's okay when things can't happen. But I try to find the line between saying it's okay and then going, no, this has to happen this way.
Right.
We need to figure this out. I'm not going to let this go. So it's finding that way to do that and pick those moments and pick because ultimately I want to get the project finished. But there was a level of professionalism in this, and I don't want it. I want the project to represent that.
I mean,
not look like I'm not meaning to be derogatory. I want it to look like a student film, and not. And the only reason I'm saying it like that's the only word I can think of, but that's your first film. The first thing
that's
you do
practice,
when
right?
you're practicing, right? We want to look like this is a people who have come together, who most of us have done stuff, a number of things, a couple of us a long time. Renata and I have done a lot under our belt. And I think Aaron's done a lot too. And so we want to make sure, okay, we're on the actors too. So we want to make sure we're honoring that and that we're getting a good product out of it.
Of course. I think that's shown throughout the entire series, throughout the entire project. shoot, even into post-production where we are right now on current day when we're filming
when we're recording this.
Yeah. I think that has been constantly at the forefront of this project, from pre to production to post-production. Throughout all of it has been this level of professionalism that has just set the standard just that much higher. That just that much more worth it. That much more. It gets me, that much more excited. That much more just in love with the entire project. I read the scripts, while we were in pre-production, and it was almost instantly I was, captured. I was in it, and seeing this entire process, it's been a really cool feeling to see, hey, you know what? It doesn't matter what level of budget or whatever you want to, production value, you can still be extremely professional.
Right.
And learn in a professional way, or learn how to conduct yourself in a professional manner, even on a smaller scale. It doesn't have to be smaller scale means less respect, means less professionalism. No, I think that was a huge thing. And, I've been on a few sets since our project, and it's interesting. They're not as professional, even though, they're paid professional gigs, whatever, da-da-da-da-da. No, not at all. Not at all the same.
I'm trying to come up with something that happened on set that day, like lesson learned. And to tell you the truth, that day went off pretty well. We did have a lighting issue. Okay, so we shot one of the nightmare sequences. I believe it's the one that goes with that episode.
Yeah.
And I guess, we shot at midday and had to shoot day for night in the living room. So we had to black out the living room and do all that.
Yep.
Renata was going for a specific look in the camera, for a specific color tone, a specific way that should look. And she wasn't happy with her lighting. But I don't know what to say lesson learned, because that wasn't my battle. And that
was my battle.
Right. But it wasn't, but I don't know why. I don't remember why she was saying something about it looking like a black hole. And now in retrospect, when I think about it, nothing wrong with what we did.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, when I think about the nightmares, it didn't actually have to look like a nightmare. Like, it could have looked like broad daylight for all I care, because we're going to represent that it's a nightmare in another way, right?
Yeah, by transitioning.
By the transitioning of,
for sure,
of either Kate falling asleep or Kate waking up or whatever it is.
That was
makes you understand
which nightmare
the nightmare
sequence, without giving away too much of it.
We just recorded the end of it the other day.
Right.
Do you remember this?
Okay. Yes. Oh,
so
interesting.
It's the group of women.
Yes.
Yeah, with Olivier.
Mm-hmm. That was an interesting one, because it was super dark.
Right.
The entire feel of it was dark, and we had so many people in such a shallow space. Shallow as in, the depth of field in the camera was just, maybe 3 feet, 4 feet, and we fit all these people in it. And so it was trying to light. I remember this so clearly now.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what her problem was with the lighting. I can't remember what it was.
It was the background was so dark, and it just felt like it was sucking everyone away.
Right, but I feel like that's what they should have done, was just throw up some light. It didn't need to be that dark.
Yeah, no.
Right, and and ultimately I would have preferred that the lead character not be dressed the way he was in the nightmare, because they had him in his regular clothing versus I wanted him in a spa robe. But she said the white or the dark purple spa robe would not work because of the lighting. And then, so in retrospect, my lesson learned is I should have looked through the camera. I should have taken a few moments and then went, why do we need it to be so dark? It doesn't have to be represented this way. That was the director choice.
Right.
It's not written in the script that you're in a dark room. It's not written in the script that it's just written that this scenario is happening, and then Kate wakes up. So
I think we automatically assign nightmare with nighttime.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so now in retrospect,
Right, totally.
which
you don't dream only.
no,
at
so
night.
I almost wish we would have discussed it in the pre-production, which we did not discuss
No, we
that
didn't.
specific
No, we
one.
did not.
And so had we discussed it, or even because we still had other pre-production meetings throughout the shoot that
I wasn't.
was
even
it
a
you
part
weren't part of, like each week
Yeah,
we'd
yeah,
have
yeah,
a
yeah.
pre of that week's production. Okay, so if I would have thought about it and we would have talked about, hey, what's your vision? So lesson learned, people, because this web series was 10 episodes long, when you're shooting this much stuff, go through each part and go, okay, I didn't realize that what she would see, her idea of what she would see would be different than it mattered. Like, because I don't want to say, because what she saw was great. Like what her idea was, it's great.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, I think we still could have come up with a different visual that would have made her happy for her art. And it didn't matter to the script, in other words.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that was probably one of the harder things to light in this house.
Yeah.
That scene specifically. There was also just so many people that it was hard to light everyone and not lose them.
Right. So there just should have been in general more light behind. Even something shining up from behind the couch that they were on or whatever. So, oh well.
We learned.
That's our lesson learned.
100%.
And I think it was, you hopefully just saw it before you listened to this, but I haven't seen a finished of it yet. So I'm hoping it's good. All right.
I'm excited.
Well, stay tuned because you're going to hear a couple things from some of the cast members.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. It's Laura from the C'est La Vie podcast. And this is a podcast about the making of the web series C'est La Vie. And today I am here with a few of the cast members, and I'm super excited. So I'll let each of you introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Mike Whittier, and I was playing Mike.
Hi, I'm Rebel Arent, and I was playing Eric.
I'm Rachel Damiani, and I played Megan.
And I am Madeleine D, and I played Emily.
So we're just going to talk a little bit right now about your experience in the casting and your experience on set. Whatever, you guys can tell me whatever story you want. Your highlight, your low light, your whatever. But we had 2 days where we had a lot of cast. And so we're going to talk about those 2 days. We'll start with talking about what happened in episode 3, which unfortunately, I'm so sorry, Rebel, you weren't in.
It's okay. I was there for the read-through.
That's right. And also, that's another thing you talked about. We sat down and did a whole read-through. Everybody was here in this office.
Yeah.
Because this is one of the places we filmed C'est La Vie. And we did do that. But we also had casting sessions. So let's start with casting. So I will tell you what we did. We put out a casting call for a couple of the main characters that we knew we needed to cast. And from that call, we had so much fabulous talent that we never had to put out a call again for any of the other characters we needed. We just mined from those auditions. So, but who wants to start? Does anybody want to talk about their experience getting cast?
Sure.
Yeah.
Good, because you're a bunch of actors.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a particularly fun audition. For the men, we all auditioned for Mitch's role. I forget the character's name, but the yogi person.
The character was
Oh my gosh,
John.
so
You auditioned for the yogi, but
Yeah.
Rebel, you actually auditioned for the
French obsessed rich dude.
right.
What's his
You,
face?
it was Tegan's husband.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
one of the main characters' husbands.
Yeah.
Literally, I wrote it, and I'm not remembering his name right now because I just keep thinking of Danny, who's coming in later today.
Yeah.
Because Danny and Griffin, who we did a lot of office scenes with them here, they're coming in later today.
Nice. Yeah, no, I mean, I was trying to remember my character's name this morning.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
so I get you, yeah.
So go ahead. So
Well,
you were auditioning for John,
Yes.
the yogi,
Yeah.
the major yogi.
Which was super duper fun. From the get go, I was like, I'm not positive I'm this guy. Because one of the things on the casting call was like slender. And I got the idea that you were looking for, like, you know, I don't know, sort of wispy character that Mitch ended up embodying. But it was a ton of fun to play with as ridiculous a person as John was. And yeah, to end up being put on the project as Mike, who I did resonate with a lot, was just super cool. So it's kind of like 2 roles for the price of one, almost. You get to play this one person in the audition, and then you show up and you get to fulfill a different character. It was really cool.
Yeah.
And we had come off the SAG strike. So when we did auditions, you guys were coming off the strike, which meant there wasn't much work in town at all. I don't know. I don't know if everybody here is SAG. Rebel, you were saying
I'm still non-union, so there was kind of something, but it's even that market like really slowed down.
Yeah.
Right, because they really couldn't do anything because they didn't want to try and cross any kind of market. And I know for me, there were certain SAG projects you could do. This SAG micro budget could have been shot during that time based on what we were doing and how we were shooting it and who we were working with. But I just know that, like for me, I was captaining a line, so I was on the strike lines every week. So there wasn't a lot of work to be had. And prior to that, you guys had really experienced a lot of online auditions because of COVID.
Oh my God, yeah.
Right.
So,
how much in-person audition do you get now?
Almost none.
I moved to LA a year and a half ago, and I think I've been in person 3 times, and 2 of them were callbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only time I'm ever in
Callbacks.
person is callbacks.
Yeah.
That's it. Otherwise, it's always self-tapes for the first audition.
Yeah.
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 So I'm surprised that you even got in-person callback. Like it seems to me like so many people are casting even with Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
After.
Yeah.
Well, I'm non-union also. I would love to be SAG. Still working on it, but yeah, I think that's one of the reasons. Because I mean, one of the callbacks was, frankly, it was kind of bizarre, and I actually bonded with somebody else who was in the waiting room with me, and we still talk. But we were kind of giggling about this situation because it was in Santa Monica at like 8:30 at night on a Tuesday, and we had to like wind through this alley and like give a password to like some kid like waiting at a gate. It was utterly bizarre. And then we went in, and it was a real audition. Like, it was legit, and they were actually making a film, but just the setup of it was so funny. Like, we both were a little, we didn't know what was going to happen to us, you know?
Yeah, like a secret nightclub.
Do you remember what the password was? Was it swordfish or?
No, actually, I don't.
It was C'est la
remember.
vie.
C'est la
But it was so funny. It was like, you know, it was like an 18-year-old kid who was just sort of like, cool, you can go through. And then like, it was hilarious. And so we still kind of talk about it, but that's kind of the nature of non-union sometimes, is that there's not a whole lot of regulation, and sometimes there's this really weird situations that you get yourself into that aren't scary. They're odd.
I don't know. I mean, if I'm having to wind through an alley and I'm a dude, I'm like, is this okay? Is this safe?
I have really like the craziest, creepiest story about like an in-person audition. So I, for the record, love in-person auditions and want them to come back so bad. But I will say, every once in a while, something happens and you're like, what? So I had this audition for, this is, I think, when I was non-union, but it was for a short film or something. And I went to, it was like some warehouse somewhere like at night, kind of a creepy area, but
like an industrial looking warehouse.
Industrial area, yeah. And
I would
went
take
in.
somebody with me.
I did. I had 2 girlfriends with me actually.
Okay,
who were visiting, who are not actors. They were just visiting me at the time. Like, do you want to come on this? They're like, okay. So they came with me, and this guy, it was like a warehouse, and it was covered with all this really goth stuff and a bunch of like taxidermy, like a bunch of dogs and animals like taxidermied all over the it's really bizarre. And he like made us wait for like, it must have been 3 hours while he was just hanging out doing nothing, and had us making some arts and crafts. while we were waiting, and I was waiting
So
to
you were
audition.
making his set pieces?
Yeah, we were making set pieces. and
props.
then he handed me the script, and I actually got to read the script. And the script was about a vigilante, like a guy who would find families who were abusing their animals, their dogs, and he would go and basically like murder the family and rescue the dog.
Yep.
And then taxidermy them?
And then I realized that this story was based on this guy. Because, not that he was a murderer, but like, I started looking around and I'm like, oh my God, okay, so this guy is obsessed with dogs. He's clearly got a really strong passion about this. He's clearly got a little violent side, 'cause there was bloody props and everything everywhere. And and he was going to play the lead character in this film. And I was going to be his girlfriend. And I was like, and we're out. Like, I don't know what this is going on, but we're leaving.
Oh.
And snuck out. We just snuck out. It was just so bad.
But all
my
that
God.
to say.
All that to
Yeah.
say, we really want in-person
The C'est La
auditions.
Vie audition was amazing.
So exactly, like
Yeah.
so soon after that bizarre audition that I had, I submitted for the breakdown for C'est La Vie, and not only were the breakdowns good, like they were descriptive, they were concise. You know, if something's like this long, if it's like 3 paragraphs per character, you're kind of in for a strange world.
It could be a lot, yeah.
Yeah, you don't know what you're getting into, but
Because the person submitting the breakdown isn't able to
as
get
seasoned.
it. Yeah.
Like sometimes they're not as seasoned, and so so it was these concise breakdowns. I was so excited, and then the writing was so good. It was so funny. It was and also the writing set up a world around you, and so when you were reading the sides, you went, okay, I'm gonna look over here. I know I'm supposed to be, completing this action as I'm saying this, and then you could also infuse a ton of personality into it, which was so much fun. And so watching those tapes from all of those different women like auditioning for the same part must have been so fascinating, because you get all these like different flavors on the exact same recipe basically. And so I had a blast with the audition, and I got a call back and was so excited. And I was just so grateful for something that was like legit, where everybody was so like professional and passionate, and the writing was good, and you attracted good people too. Like everybody's so kind and excited, and I had so much fun on set because everybody was just lovely, and that doesn't always happen on set either. You attracted good people.
Sure hope it does.
Yeah.
But that's what we want. You know, I feel like that's the kind of set I want. I've never really been on a nightmare set. I've been on tense sets.
Yeah.
Like
Unfriendly ones.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's unfriendly. More like tense, because they're behind the 8 ball. Like they're not really on top of getting their stuff done on time or whatever. I've been in that situation. That kind of pressure never really bothers me. I mean, in some way it does. I'm like a steamer kind of person. Like blah 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 blah. That's the extent of what I'm gonna do. But I think that I luckily have never been on like a really like set where it's been really angry, but all I knew was that I wanted it to be a fun experience. I wanted to, like, if I was going to make this, it was going to be worth my time making it. It was going to be fun. And I was so excited to hold the auditions. Like that was such, even up, there was a highlight. So one of my co-host on this, Sebastian, is actually somebody I knew since he was in high school. I gave him his first chance to work on set back when I helped mentor a short film called C'est La Vie about Kate Beaufort. And so it all kind of, so then we, he's in film school now, and we brought him on to help with this, and we let him kind of really ride the whole process. We're like, okay, well, you can come to pre-production meetings, you can come. And so he was so excited about the audition. He was like, oh my God, I've never sat in and done anything like that in my life.
Oh my God.
So it was like a whole learning process for
That
him
is
too.
so cool.
And he wants to be a director. He's going to film school. So I think it's...
You did it right too, I think, because when in having the general casting call, what you were able to do is you were able to take each person that walked in the door and try things on with them. Like, we came in with whatever role, but then on the spot, when you met someone, when you saw how they played it, you were able to try, okay, can you, like, that's what you did with me. You tried out, okay, can you try on this role? Can you try on this role? And we were just cold reading. But it was what a great way to cast, you know, like, rather than having a specific idea ahead of time, being open to what walks in the room and how they are naturally wanting to go, and then finding, you know, and you wrote so many great roles for women.
Oh, thank you.
Like,
that was totally our goal.
Yes.
That was our goal. I mean, it's 2 women writing, and it's 2 women who've been wanting to be in the business, you know, and we've been forever toiling in lower ends of the business, I suppose, smaller sets, whatever. We've been doing it for many years, and you know, we just knew what we wanted to do right now, and that what we thought was right for right now.
Yeah.
And so that's how I think that our own truth and desire has come out. That's why it was able to come out this way.
Yeah, I think it's what gives it like a uniqueness as well, as like an authenticity. Because it does spring from your own like personal experiences with travel and with living abroad and with, you know, like longing to kind of like go back to that place. And it's one of the things that like I immediately connected with as well, and made me just excited to like meet you and the rest of the team, because I was like, oh, these are people who like share my own like sort of longing for a place across the ocean that like I miss all the time. And then just working in the audition space and like getting to even like chit chat a little bit about like Paris and like our different thoughts on it. And I think I think that's like one of the hardest challenges with creating any piece of art is like, how do you put yourself into it? Because I think it's so easy and tempting to want to make something that is, you know, like whatever's hot right now, or to like to unintentionally be trying to like copy or whatever, like the work of someone you really admire.
Right.
Which is something that I took years, you know, in developing in my own sort of like creative side, like trying to find what is my voice as like a writer and an actor outside of it. And I think it does come down to what are the personal experiences that matter the most to you. Yeah. And that was what was so evident to me, is I was like, this is someone who gets it. And I was just so excited to kind of like get to kind of play and have fun, and also like be a bit of a dork, because the character I was auditioning for, I got to be a bit of a dork and a bit ridiculous. And anytime I can do that, it's like, oh, cool, we're cooking. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, I think too, for us, I will tell you, C'est La Vie's had a long trajectory. It started with, like I said, a short film that we actually did a podcast episode on. The beginning of the first episode of the podcast is about how C'est La Vie came about. But I was mentoring a student who plays Chloe in C'est La Vie. She plays the younger daughter, and I was mentoring her through making a project, her 8th grade project at Waldorf. And we needed a story, and she was working with a writer friend of mine to create her own story, and the director we had set to mentor her really wasn't loving any of the stories, wasn't wanting to, like, you know, for a number of reasons, what you can offer, you know, like this story might be like, we can't find that location or whatever, you know, whatever, it wasn't working for her. And we ended up, she ended up leaving to go teach in Paris. This is something we both were doing at that time. And she ended up leaving to teach in Paris. And she said, do you mind shooting over here? And I'm like, no, because I was going to be there soon anyways. I didn't mind. And she's like, can you write something for yourself and a French man? And so I popped off a short film in a day. I wrote it. And then it ended up, she didn't even end up being the director. The director ended up being a French director, a friend of mine, Hervé, who works on this project still. And then it ended up being shot in California. And the French director and the French actor came to California instead of us going there. So, and we did this little, I don't know, it was about, I guess, a 12-minute long short, maybe. I don't know. About, I was like, I need to write something fast. So let me write something I know. I happen to recently have been telling all my friends about this ridiculous event where we had a rat in our wall and we kept getting rid of it. So I read that you could put mint on cotton balls and stuff and put it in your attic, and they don't like mint, they'll leave the house. Then they left the house, and I told my husband, you have to close off every gap, and then he would miss one, and then that rat would come back. And then so over a period of a couple weeks, this rat was in and out of my walls, and finally one night I had, I think, I don't even remember, but I feel like it was near Christmas or something, that I had a bag of bunch of different candy in my closet, and I heard in my wall, and then literally a hole this big. This freaking rat got through a cable. I don't know how it got through there. So it comes out of the wall, and I'm like, it's in the closet. And it's literally the middle of the night. So this whole short is literally written by what I put my husband through that night, in which I insisted he catch the rat.
Yeah.
Not try to find a way to kill the rat in my house. Like, don't try to give it poison. So I had purchased on online this cage that you could catch it in. And ultimately, we got the rat in a corner and I tapped its butt with a shoehorn. Into my dad's old shoehorn, long stick, and tapped its butt, and it ran into the cage. And then I made him drive it away and release it. And he released it into the bluffs of Orange County. So I wrote the original C'est La Vie is this French man and his wife catching this rat. And that story went on to be a short film that went out in Paris. And that short film went to get people interested in the idea of this being a family and a series and a comedy. And then, so it's been going on since 2019, 2020, that short film came out. So we've been going on. We wrote the whole series. Then we were pitching the series couldn't go because writer strike, actor strike. So then we're like, let's write a web series. Let's take advantage of the time. So that's how it all went. So we'd been working with these characters for a while. So long before Emily in Paris came out, and we are literally writing our main series and the franticness of what happened the night Emily in Paris dropped. Oh my God, there's a story about this girl moving abroad to Paris. Are people going to think we're ripping it off? We started this before her, blah, blah, blah. Well, so we always joke, we're the Emily in Paris for the older generation. Because clearly, I'm not Emily. I'm Kate. So a whole different age in life. Kate's doing something completely different. But we did get very worried about what you were saying. This is all coming from you spawning on the idea that the writing would be, and it's like, well, no, we actually started writing a lot of stuff that I literally have not watched one episode, but people will tell me, oh, something similar. Like, and I said, but there's only so many tropes I can do between the Americans and the French.
Well, and that's like every story ever as well. Like the whole concept of like originality doesn't really exist because everything is just riffing. It's just different perspectives on the same thing. And what's fun is how you do it, and that's your voice and the way you see it and the way these characters come to life. And I think that's what makes it unique. And then I think the fun of it is being able to have a conversation about two different pieces. Emily in Paris is one style, it's one perspective. This is a different style, different perspective. And people, they might compare them, but I think that's to the benefit of both stories because now we're creating a fun conversation between art pieces. It's boring if it's only one piece about one thing and that's all you get. I want 5 perspectives that we get to talk about and pick apart.
And her existence in Paris is nothing like Kate's will be when Kate is in Paris. So it's nothing, it's not the same at all. There won't be designer clothes and high heels. But anyways, but so that's in general what's happened here. And so we brought you all in for auditions and we cast you. And so the first episode we shot had a large cast, not the first episode, but the first episode with the large cast was episode 3. And it was an episode where Kate is having the women over from school to try and have a kind of like a parent leadership meeting. She wants to be the head of this parent leadership group, and she's there trying to have them come over and maybe kind of impress them, but she is a completely different generation and she doesn't know what to do to make these women happy. And so all of you 3 were in that episode, and that was your first day on set too.
That was so much fun. First of all, it's always fun when you can get a big cast and you're all just kind of mingling. There was a great energy with that group of people. and I'm a mom, as you know. We discovered this actually in the table read that I am a Waldorf mom
As well.
And I didn't even know that the script was based on Waldorf moms until I read it, and we discovered that we had that in common.
Yeah. It's so weird.
Which, by the way, I have to say, I've had the most people say to me, "Oh my gosh, when is that coming out? When is that coming out?" with this show, more than any other project I've done. All the Waldorf people of any association really want to see this.
I feel worried about
sure
that
it's
because I'm
relatable.
making fun of it.
I know, but we are so easy to make fun of. It's fine. We're
And
gonna love
everyone
it.
loves to laugh at themselves
Everybody
a little bit.
does love to laugh at themselves.
But
Anyway, yeah.
I was to Rebel's point earlier though, like there is just a universality in looking for acceptance, right? So Waldorf moms
Exactly.
and everybody else can relate. Like I don't even have a kid, so I'm not a Waldorf dad, but I grew up in like a kind of hoity-toity town in New Jersey. Chatham, you know who you are, and like. It is relatable to struggle to keep up with the Joneses and all of that.
Right. And you'll see it's filmed in Kate's house, which is my house. And I'm an average middle class person, and our school is one that can definitely attract very wealthy people. So you have, a different level of, the tuition is not cheap. So it can, a lot of people have a lot of money. And I'm not saying that necessarily is the deal that's between them, but it's also it's a community of people. I feel like because Waldorf is very artistic, right? It's very led from the idea that if you are creative and if you can think for yourself, then that's how you're going to make your way, right? There's too much pedagogy to go into and explain it all, but there's a lot of creativity involved. And the parent that brings, you have a couple different styles that show up there, right? And then you also have then just maybe the parents who want a small private school and aren't really into the pedagogy. So you have this level of people going from the very rich to people who are let in on a scholarship, or people who are maybe like teachers' kids or staff kids. And so you have this spectrum of wealth that in a public school in a wealthy area you wouldn't find, because it's going to be the wealthy kids there, right? So you have this spectrum of wealth, then you have a spectrum of belief system, and then you also have, it brings a lot with the more artistic community, you get the more holistic community, and then you get the people on the spectrum of that, the people who believe this holistic thing is great and that's okay, and then you get the people who are so far gone, I shouldn't say that, that's a mean word, that are so on the other side of it that believe that only holistic things work, like that some of the science isn't real. So you get that whole spectrum there.
Only sound baths will help you.
That's right, sound bath will. I gotta
and
say
calming oils that calm you.
I will tell you though that the oils in my house do make my house smell good.
Yeah, they're
I don't think
lovely.
they change I would love to say that they calm me, they don't. And
But
then,
you're not into like the love water that you have to take care of before you drink it.
no.
That's where you draw the line.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Is
how
that
do you
a
love
thing?
There is love water. Yes, that's a
Do
thing.
you like
Oh my
hug
gosh.
the bottle and like
you
That
have to
was-
love the water.
You brought that
to it?
up in the table read, and I was like, I didn't know that was a thing.
There's
and
a
that's,
thing
I
called
find it
love
extraordinary.
water. Love water. Oh yes, there's a store by our Waldorf. There's a family that sells love water.
When you told me that Gong Camp was real,
Yeah, Gone Camp is real.
I lost it. My brain broke. Like, wow. I'm a percussionist. Gong Camp should not be real.
Although I think we should look it up, because the people playing the gong aren't just boom. They're like, they're like it's.
Oh, it's like when you do the glassware.
I think so. I think it's like a thing. I think it might be a little bit like, it's like, I feel like it's like band camp for adults. I mean, I don't know what's going on there.
Come on, guys.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on there, but it's often in Europe does a lot of gong camp. But it's real. Like we really, when we wrote, we really tried to like, if we were gonna write something funny, we're like, could he go to gong camp? Is gong camp a thing? And then we start investigating. But and not to say that. I'm telling you, the girl who played the sound bath, I wish she could have been here today. I believe that's what she's doing today. She is legitimately an actress friend of mine. We went to Playhouse West together, and I knew from her Instagram and keeping like little in touch a little bit that she was working at a yoga studio and doing a lot of really yoga and healing retreats, and I had seen a lot of posts where she had started playing the bowls and doing sound baths, and I was like, this is perfect. She's actually an actress. Let's bring her. And I had to let her know the main character is like, this is poo-poo. Yeah. Like I'm gonna make fun of it as the main character in some ways, but the other people are really into it, and we just really want a really nice sound bath, because regardless if you think it's going to heal you, it sure is good music relaxes you.
Oh, yeah.
Sound baths
Sound
can relax
bath,
you.
so much fun.
Nothing
yeah.
wrong with
Absolutely
being relaxed.
I got really into
Sound bath.
ASMR
Yeah.
sound baths during the pandemic. I'd just be on TikTok, just finding someone doing one and be like, I'm going to nap now.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love ASMR.
Yeah.
I
Oh, my
absolutely
goodness.
love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not to like heal a disease
Yeah.
or anything.
But it's just you're attracted to
It
it.
has
makes me
limitations.
feel
It makes my
good.
brain go all
Yeah.
tickly, and I like
Oh
that.
yeah, with
Yeah.
those little like the caterpillars.
Yeah.
Like it's got all these little pieces.
You
and
feel
they,
like the
run there.
chills a little bit.
I
yeah.
love it.
Yeah, that's great, man.
And I absolutely loved the woman who did the sound bath, and I don't know why. Stacy had just the most beautiful energy. Like you would just stand near her, and you just felt nice around her.
Yeah.
She was so positive and fun and sweet, and she also looks like Heather Locklear. And nobody had ever told her that, and I was like, you look exactly like Heather Locklear.
She's very pretty. I
she's so
never
pretty.
realized she looked like Heather. I don't know. I'll have to look
It's
back.
like a very like Zen Heather Locklear.
Yeah, I get that
I loved
completely. Yeah.
Yeah, she was a wonderful addition, and I
Yeah.
love that. And I
But that's
also,
a whole nother episode. We're on episode 3.
Oh gosh,
That's true, we're getting
you're
ahead
So
right.
of
we're talking about
ourselves.
chai and
Chai and matcha.
Matcha.
this is the episode
Yeah.
where the moms get there, and all the food, literally one mom comes with a sign for every bit of food, so it's perfectly labeled, which is another experience I have, and it's all perfectly labeled. You know, we've got your gluten-free, your vegan, your celiac kitchen, all of that labeled, and you know, the main character has made her quiche, which is clearly got dairy. It's clearly got, you know.
Wasn't your line good old fashioned food with everything in it?
Yeah. Good old fashioned everything in it food.
That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And later on, Kate is talking to her husband, and he asks how it goes, and she says, "I don't know. My food wasn't free of anything." so there is definitely. So she's coming up against, you know. Also, Kate's a Gen Xer, and she's not raised. Listen, you know, I'm a Gen Xer. None of this existed in my world until I had kids, and I had my kids later, and came into this world where I brought them to a very specific group of people. And I love my school. I love my teachers. I love the experience my children get at that school. But some of it is not really for me. I'm a little more grounded in this is life and this is science and this is like, and that's how I was raised. And I don't have a problem with whatever anybody else wants to do or think. But Kate is in that position of, here she is, this Gen Xer with these children, and she's the oldest parent in the class, and she's got these younger parents who are from a different existence, a different lifestyle. You know, my parents were actually immigrants, so I was raised differently than a lot of people who've been in this country a long time. Like, you know, my experiences were different, and that's where Kate's coming from. And so that's kind of, this episode is sort of her having to deal with her differences and her uncomfortableness of feeling like these moms are all young and beautiful and got it together, and here I am, and I can't figure out where my in is.
It's, you know, it's really tough. I mean, certainly anytime you're entering into either a new community of whatever kind, and there's sort of an established way of doing things, an established language that people are speaking in, and you know, like I grew up in Minnesota, and a lot of people from Minnesota are born and raised there and kind of stay there, and we're very friendly folk. But if you're not from there and you move there, it can be very difficult to integrate into a place where everyone has known there are certain people for their whole life. And I always really feel like it's so important, like to do whatever you can when there's a new person, to reach out and to invite them in and to help them to integrate, because that can just be, I mean, kids, we know kids deal with this, but adults deal with it too. And like, you know, I think it's just really, really important. I think that was something that obviously we were playing those characters who were not particularly
open to that idea.
Yeah, open. But like there's always something I feel so passionately about. There's always something of value in any person who comes in, something to learn from them, some richness there. And I just, you know, so even though we were playing that, I think it was an important issue to come up, to be raised, that, you know, we all have a responsibility to help the new people feel welcome when they come in.
Right. Well, and the interesting thing for Kate is she's actually one of the older people there because she has an older child. And it's the new group of women coming in that are all the same age in her younger child's class that is harder for her to integrate to. But they don't really want her old thoughts, which is actually something I've written. It was written from a grain of truth. So something I've come up against where some of the younger generation in the school, when the older people in the school talk about, well, this is sort of the way we do it at Waldorf. And they're like, but they're from a different generation. I don't understand. Why are we doing it this way? Like suddenly we have like a lot of different style of security at our school because people were worried about like every person needs to walk in the office and put on a sticker, name badge and sign in. And yet I've been a mom at the school 14 years. When I walk into the office and I say, I'm going over there to get my son, they know who I am. It's a very small school. So, but now we suddenly have all these rules in place because some of the younger parents were so afraid. And so that's like the kind of like the older generation going, it's okay. It's like, this is how we do it. And the younger generation going, no, we want it differently.
Interesting.
I will say playing Mike was a little bit fun because he's also something of an outsider.
Yes.
And I felt like there were moments on set during the scenes where like we would kind of share a glance with each other like, this is crazy.
Right.
But there was also like an inability to connect between our characters because I'm younger and you're older, and because like also my character's kind of main thing is like just show up for the wife, you know, do what she wants you to do and let that be that. So I'm kind of trying to get out of the way as fast as I can too. So I don't have time to potentially blow up her spot. But yeah, I liked sort of almost being like your companion, but we can't connect.
Right.
And so
well, and that's because you're married to the character that I wrote to be the one that is the most open to Kate. So the one parent in this group that is most willing to not worry about whatever these little things are that cause people, like whether Kate's food has gluten in it or not, is Otea's character, and Brett. And she, and so Brett and Mike are a little bit of a different vibe than the rest of the group. All right, so episode 3. There's 3 of you from episode 3. Any highlight you can think of?
Carrying the matcha over and over again, and getting
Big
pretty
jugs of matcha
tired
that you
by the
never drank
last
because
two.
we kept saying we can't pour anything out of it yet because
Yeah.
we need it to look the same in every take. And then finally, when it came time to eat that day, we forgot to pour the matcha.
I would say for me, it's definitely the arrival of Olivier and the croissant.
Yes.
Like, I mean, it's...
And they had you go a little crazy.
I was a little... It's just those croissants, a little very exciting. No, I mean, also, there's some things where it's like, okay, we know this is a comedy, but I also lived in France, and it's scarily realistic. Like, the way people react and respond to anything French and the French accent and all that stuff, it wasn't really that, far out in my...
I know.
What is
it with Americans and somebody coming over here with a French accent? Why do we get so taken?
I think it's just
It's just a beautiful
it's like beautiful accent, but it's also, I think, so connected to like romance and sensuality.
Yeah.
Like it's so just tied to that stereotype. So we hear it and we go, oh my goodness, like, oh,
Yeah.
be still my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like fetishized.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah.
Didn't one of you say, like, he's so French? Or, like,
Yeah, and
That was us.
yeah.
The twin and I.
yeah.
Yeah.
French.
French.
Yeah.
So sexy.
And so French.
So French. Yeah, I was gonna say
embarrassing.
the same thing when he came in. We were all just kind of like alley cats, and like
Yeah,
somebody had like
meow.
dropped milk. Like,
Yeah.
and we all just sort of
And
paused
just
for a
right
second.
in front of you, you know?
Yes.
Like, no shame.
Yes. No, sure.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah, that
man.
was funny. And also, what was really fun was having the same lines sometimes as Allison, because we had that kind of like twin factor go on, and so usually we'd like start out saying the same line, and then we would each have a line afterwards. But we got into this sync where we sometimes we had like our fingers linked together, so we were like actually holding hands, and we'd like squeeze and then say the line at the same time, or we would both take, like, I would hear her take in her breath, and I'd do the same, and then we would say it at the same time. But just kind of like finding that level of being in sync with her. But what was really fun was, even though we were supposed to basically be like the same person, Emily kind of became a little bit more of like a follower, like a nice follower, but like, you know, somebody who's kind of always looking to somebody to like lead a little bit. And so Allison ended up kind of just naturally taking that lead with Sarah, and she was just kind of like my boss a little bit. And so, which was really fun and made for like a nice dynamic. And I was always kind of just like looking to her for like approval of whatever I was saying and doing, and then we would both look for approval from everybody else, and it was just like, it was so much fun. I had a ball on
Yeah.
this shoot. It was so much fun.
Oh, I'm so glad. And I will tell you, those two were just created out of the depths of my mind. Like, I don't actually, I just was like, this would be funny.
Yeah.
Perfectly cast. You guys were so great.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up for this episode, for this interview, but we'll be back.